The first Russian Navy ship to use the Panama Canal since World War II has passed through the famed waterway. The Admiral Chabanenko had been participating in military exercises with Venezuela before it entered the 80-kilometre canal, which connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. During the Cold War, the canal was off-limits to the Soviet Union. The warship is part of the first Russian Navy deployment in the Western Hemisphere since the Cold War. The Panama Canal was US territory until the end of 1999. Since then, it's been under the control of Panama, which allows the passage to be used by all countries. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has rallied thousands of supporters in Caracas. He's trying to get the backing for his bid to fast-track a proposal that would allow him to run for re-election. Supporters carried banners and signs to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Chavez's first election in 1998. Chavez says he's ready to begin preparing to lead the country at least until 2019. The Constitution requires him to step down when his current term ends in 2013. The National Assembly is expected to pass a measure next week approving a new vote, possibly for February. Chavez's first attempt to abolish presidential term limits failed last year when voters rejected a package of proposed constitutional changes. European supermarkets have been ordered to clear their shelves of Irish bacon, ham and sausages after Irish pork products were found to have been tainted with a potentially cancer-causing chemical. The recall affects all pork products produced since September the 1st, after the discovery of dioxins in Irish pigs and pig feed at 80 to 200 times the safety limit. Officials have asked grocery stores, pubs and restaurants in Ireland to ship back all indigenous pork products to their manufacturers as part of the investigation. They've advised the public not to consume Irish pork products as a precautionary measure. The recall has dealt a major blow to Irish agriculture, threatening an industry that's worth more than €450 million a year. This is Worldwide Watch on CCTV International. China has voiced strong indignation and firm objection to a meeting between French President Nicolas Sarkozy and the Dalai Lama in Poland on Saturday. Deputy Foreign Minister He Yafei has summoned France's ambassador to China to lodge a complaint. He said that despite the Chinese government's repeated requests, Sarkozy has insisted on meeting with the Dalai Lama. He described the move as unwise and said it undermines relations between the two countries. Meanwhile, Foreign Ministry spokesman Liu Jianchao said in a press release that the French side's action has grossly interfered in China's internal affairs and severely hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. Liu urged France to take action to ensure steady and sound development of bilateral relations. 7 months after a massive earthquake hit southwest China's Sichuan province, rebuilding of housing infrastructure and industry is well underway. As Yang Yan explains, most of the projects are expected to be completed in 3 years' time.
These new houses went up just months after the disaster. 680 households are now under construction, accounting for 53% of the total. 96% of the industrial enterprises have resumed production, and over 1,300 schools have been built or under construction. Transport and water conservancy projects are also in progress. This is the site of the Wudu Reservoir, a hub of the new project to channel water to over 130,000 hectares of farmland in western Sichuan. The project will benefit 10 million local residents.
The project, not only for irrigation but also to protect the environment and boost tourism, is expected to be completed in 2010.
The rebuilding has great impact on boosting Sichuan's economy. Statistics show the third quarter provincial GDP has increased 10% over last year, just over 1 percentage point higher than the national average. Meanwhile, 18 provinces and cities have signed more than 400 agreements with local enterprises to assist with the reconstruction. So far, the total investment has reached 180 billion yuan. Yang Yan, CCTV.
The central government says 15 billion yuan set aside for railway construction in China has been allocated to 25 key projects. The projects include express links and tracks designed for the transport of coal, as well as tracks connecting the resource-rich western regions with the rest of the country. Officials say they expect the 15 billion yuan in initial investment to generate a further 50 billion yuan for basic infrastructure. Total investment in the railway industry is tipped to hit 350 billion yuan this year alone. More details have been announced on China's proposed fuel tax reform. The National Development and Reform Commission, the Ministries of Finance and Transport and the State Administration of Taxation held a joint news conference in Beijing on Saturday. Gui Xiaozhang reports.
This round of fuel tax reform consists of two parts. Firstly, with regard to the gradual abolishment of 6 categories of fees, including road maintenance tax and highway toll charges, the government decided to take a cautious approach to these fees because over 90% of state highways were constructed using loans, and this will still be a major source of financing for road construction for a considerable period of time. The second part of the plan concerns raising consumption taxes for gasoline and diesel to 1 and 0.8 yuan respectively. The government says the tax is already reflected in the pump prices, and so there won't be any increase in the retail prices. It says the proposed tax is actually lower than what's being levied in the European Union and many other countries and regions. The draft plan says China's domestic crude oil prices should be set directly in line with world prices. But for refined petroleum products, price adjustments will be made with an indirect link to world figures to avoid the negative impact of abnormal factors, such as oil speculation on domestic oil products. The government says the reform is aimed at promoting China's oil sector as well as energy saving, and also ensures domestic fuel supply and stable economic growth.
If you drive less, you will pay less tax. If you drive more, you will pay more tax. This is the main purpose of our reform. It encourages people to save oil and to reduce emissions. It's not a simple transportation policy. It's also an important resource and consumption policy.
The plan also calls for a limit on pump prices. The government says it will continue to regulate retail costs to prevent large hikes caused by fluctuations in international oil prices. Gui Xiaozheng, CCTV.
Well, at least for some consumers, reforming the fuel tax could be a step in the right direction. And for retailers, it could also help to boost months of flagging sales. Zhou Xiaoye takes a look.
It's a chilly winter day in Beijing, but spring could be on the way for the car market. Expectations of a reform to fuel tax is drawing some interest from potential buyers.
I think it's good for car owners. I originally planned to buy a car in 2010, but now I'm considering bringing forward my plans.
Many think owning a vehicle will cost less because they can control how much tax they pay by cutting down on how much they drive. And that's also good news for retailers.
Overall, the reform will be good for companies that build highways. It's good for low-emission private car owners, as well as high-emission business cars owned by companies. It's also good for the trains that transport goods, but not good for vehicles that do the same business. Meanwhile, it will be forcing energy-intensive chemical industries to cut back on fuel consumption by raising their production costs.
Investors say the fuel price reform favors the petrochemical industry, such as companies like PetroChina and Sinopec, because the reform is largely determined by market forces. And they also think it's good news for alternative energy companies like nuclear, solar energy, and wind energy. Zhou Xiaoye, CCTV.